Could I go second, please? Could I go second?
Yes, you do, sure.
Not quite ready.
Why not? You got Jerry Smith.
I'm Jerry Smith, a retired master's degree in social work, representing the Eugene Community Interfaith Occupy. In 1965, I began as a safety net social worker in Oakland, California. We had over 100,000 persons on welfare with a social worker caseload of 30 persons and no evident homelessness in that extremely conservative Alameda County. Financing became federal. For recent years, federal budgeting has highly favored the rich and moved more and more abandon the poor. No money for many, too little for those who are in need, no supervision for the many who cannot manage. There is no American value to abandon the poor, leaving them unsheltered in the rain and cold. We must return to a workable federal government providing our needed assistance. Major advocacy must be aimed at a federal assistance to the poor and to those who serve the poor. All of you here are doing your best on the local level. None of you have enough money. Not a single one of your agencies got any free time or can manage the caseload you've got. If you apply for Social Security in this town right now because you're disabled, the chances are that the application will take 2 years or longer. People don't apply until they're destitute. And as you can see from the SNAP information now, there are 14,000 destitute people in Lane County. Destitute means zero income, no source of income, none at all. Those people fall every day. They're losing their houses, they lose their cars, they don't get health care, they can't take care of themselves. A fellow I've been talking to for a year finally said to me, "Can you help me apply for Social Security? I can't do it myself. Social Security has got cut back so far that you have to apply online." Can you imagine a homeless person applying online? It's not possible. Our resources are way too little, and we need to get what's available.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, Pat. For people that are standing, we have some chairs over here, and there are a couple open ones over there. So, there you go. Go ahead.
David, you want to? David Hazen.
All right, my name is David Hazen. I'm self-titled the Imagineer of the Eugene City of Peace, but I'm also the member of the Housing Initiative and the Homeless Wisdom Circle of First Congregational Church, which is at 23rd and Harris. Last year, we set a goal of raising $60,000 for 3 nonprofits that are engaged in housing the homeless. What we raised was $77,000, which raises the possibility that there is a large and unused resource in this community. I did some research on that, and this is what I discovered. There are 216 religious faith communities in our area, communities who would most likely support the ethic of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. 63 of those churches or congregations publicly list programs that provide food, clothing, or shelter. And there are also 109 nonprofits and more than 170 businesses who donate to those nonprofits, and 18 agencies of city and county government that provide services at reduced or no cost. So, to me, this represents thousands and thousands of compassionate people. And the 2015-16 Community Health Needs Assessment Visioning Report lists compassion as the #1 value for creating community health, followed by inclusion and equity. And I'm convinced there's plenty of compassion in our community, and that it's just not organized around a single vision. So these micro models that we see, these seeds of beloved community, are already in place, and they're mostly invisible to each other. Margaret Wheatley has said, when separate local efforts can be seen as networks, then strengthened as communities of practice, suddenly and surprisingly, a new system emerges at a greater level of scale. So is this not the kind of massive response to a housing crisis that we're looking for? So imagine what our community could be like in just a few short years if we focused our energy on our strengths instead of our weaknesses, on making our compassion visible to each other and facilitating our collaboration, particularly among those in the faith community. Now, I built a website with that thesis. It's called the Emerald Compassionate Action Network, or ECAN, ecan.today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Cassidy.
I am Bob Cassidy. Yes, Bob Cassidy, that's one of the candidates for mayor. I want to talk to you about two things today. The homeless group is a varied group, and one of the groups that isn't being sought after very much is the group that has a home but no place to park it. We have a piece of property that's owned by eWeb right now. It's sitting vacant. It will be vacant for quite a while before it's sold or starting to build on. And I wondered why that couldn't be used for the parking of campers and cars in town. Spoke to our city manager, John Reese, about it, and he said, well, that's eWeb kind of thing. And I said, well, talk to him. I know Roger's a nice fellow, and he would be very receptive to this, and I know the board members of eWeb would be very receptive to that too. This is a place that's fenced. It's not got neighbors that they have to worry about. It's got plumbing. It would be very, I was looking for a group that can go as a group to talk to either the city or eWeb and just say, can we use that for a while to park these cars? Talk to the police chief about the chief Cunningham. He seemed to have gave a response like he hadn't even thought of something like this before. That it would be an ideal place. The second thing I'd like to mention is that a group of us have been working very strongly for getting a $15 minimum wage for the city employees and the people who do city contracts. We have a number of city employees that are minimum wage or a little bit above that and have been for many years, and they qualify for food stamps. They are on the verge of becoming homeless. If anything happens to somebody who's living on minimum wage, even in this state, it's very precarious. So the city is starting to deal with this. They have arranged for a work session to talk about it, but that hasn't been set yet when that will be. But this is something that would be very, we have quite a number of city employees in this category, not the police or the fire department. I'm sure they've got it better. But this is a serious thing that even our own people who are delivering city services to us are working at this kind of capacity and this precarious. They have difficulty in fussing about it because they are listed as temporary workers. We have over 700 workers for the cities that are classified as temporary, even though they've been there for 20 years or longer. This is you know, it's difficult for them to pursue something like this. But it's something that if there's a way this group can foster that activity when it comes up to the city council, a $15 minimum wage, it would be very helpful.
Thank you. Chris Cunningham?
My name is Chris Cunningham. I'm retired from careers in healthcare and journalism. I'm a community-based volunteer and work as a court-appointed special advocate for foster kids and for a variety of homeless initiatives in the community and through my church. I serve on several related committees, including the Nightingale Health Sanctuary Steering Committee. But more than anything, my own personal experience with a family member has taught me that, at least for people who are chronically homeless and have mental illness, they do not have the energy or wherewithal to seek out services and housing independently. I doubt my sibling would be here today if not for the Eugene Mission, Shankle Safe Haven, and now supported here through Shankle or Shelter Care. And so I applaud this strategic focus in your 5-year plan using a housing first approach. Last weekend I had 2 conversations with 2 women who had been living, one of them had lived near the railroad tracks and the other had been sleeping at night on the doorsteps of a local business. One said she worked part-time and the other told me that she had disability. Now living at Nightingale Health Sanctuary, both women say that they and their belongings are much safer, better rested, and with a newfound stability in a sanctioned camp, they believe it will be easier for them to access housing and social services. In reading the time frame for addressing emergency housing by 2021, I wondered if the board here has considered an interim plan for dealing with the immediate needs, especially for those who are experiencing psychological crises or who are medically fragile. Until 2021, we need additional rest stops and sanctioned camps that offer temporary, safe, and legal places. I also noted in the plan that the wraparound services will be available on-site in some of the supported housing units and through mobile support services in others. Will this board endorse the need for additional qualified staff to provide the necessary case management to avoid delays in receiving services? And my last question to you is, will you organize a subcommittee to include local realtors, landlords, and business owners who might help advance your strategic goals? While grateful, very grateful for your efforts today, I urge you to help expedite the plans for emergency housing and sanctioned camps to increase the living options for the homeless during the next 5 years. Thank you for your time.
John Field?
Hello, my name is John Tilton. I'm a local business owner and also disabled. I'm currently receiving SSDI benefits. I'm loosely associated with Occupy Eugene. My comments today concern homelessness, prevention of homelessness. I think it's important, the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Looking at the Dusk to Dawn camp proposal that was passed by the Eugene City Council this past couple months, and seeing that, estimating that if you expanded that program to be a total of 80 camps to house 1,600 people year-round, 7 days a week instead of the 3 days a week that currently are being used for by St. Vincent de Paul in one camp, you would be looking at a total bill of about $18 million for that program. On the other hand, if you simply house 4 people for a 2-bedroom apartment, that's $600 a month, and as a form of homelessness prevention program where you provide rental assistance to families, that would cost approximately $6 million a year to help 3,200 people a month or 800 families a month. So I think it's much more reasonable and cost effective to, by a factor of 6, 1,600 versus 3,200 versus 18 million versus 6 million, to have a homeless prevention program where you provide mental assistance similar to what shelter care does for disabled people or mentally brain damaged people, but extend that also to regular folks. And let's see what else. Also, my comments include I'm a little bit dismayed with the federal government getting down the neck with the local city government in a Colin way. What they're going to do is they're going to threaten to take away HUD funding from cities and counties that criminalize homelessness. I think that's a bit backwards. It's a bit like taking away funding from schools that are underperforming when they are underperforming because they live in poor neighborhoods to begin with. Take away their funding because they have low test scores. I think that's ridiculous. It's also equally ridiculous to take away HUD funding from cities that are abusing the homeless. Maybe you should hold the city councilors personally liable for human rights violations, but you shouldn't take away HUD funding. So that's my comments.
John Paul Ransom.
Hi there, I'm Don Ransom. I'm the Director of Shelter Care, and I want to thank the committee for the time that they put into developing this strategic plan. I also want to commend them for the content. I think there's a lot of great initiatives. My time here, I want to focus primarily on Goal 1.1 because it addresses a couple of issues that are important to shelter care. One of our major barriers to helping people in the community who are homeless is the lack of affordable housing. The idea that we put a number down, 600 units, permanent affordable housing units, I think is fantastic. And I think that that's the first step toward solving the problem is increasing the stock of affordable housing. Second, we are excited about the emphasis in Goal 1.1 on housing first. I think that there's still some confusion in the community about housing first. It's a new idea, this and that. We want to assure everybody that it's not a new idea. It's an evidence-based practice. It's an evidence-based practice that shelter care has been using since 2006. And we are excited enough about it that we are continually looking for funding sources to allow us to expand the use of the Housing First model. And so by the end of this year, we should have approximately 150 people who we are helping using the Housing First model. We would love to be able to expand our services to even more individuals. We can attest that the outcomes that have been published nationally, we achieve here in Eugene. So the idea of providing permanent, low-barrier housing to individuals and then providing wraparound supportive services is an effective way to deal with chronic homelessness. We look forward to working with the board and other agencies and other entities in the community to put this strategic plan into action. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jessica C. Screen. I'm the director of ACT, A Community Together, and I've been coming to these meetings representing them since the beginning of the Poverty and Homelessness Board. And ACT is an independent 501c3 nonprofit community resource supporting capacity building, organizing, and partnerships across divides for improved quality of life in Lane County and beyond. And our activities and projects include, we're just really starting, but the plans for the future include combinations of civic engagement, civic journalism, financial services, and community organizing. It's the civic engagement part that that we're particularly involved in observing and trying to communicate here with the Poverty and Homelessness Board. And we see civic engagement partly as an international human right. I really appreciate the strategic planning process you've been doing, and thanks very much for holding this public hearing. I was glad to be able to observe the committee meetings of the strategic planning committee. And I was in the audience, but I was pleased that I was occasionally called on when I held up my hand. And actually, some of the input I gave was actually worked into this new draft, and I really appreciate that. Particularly, you may remember I had been saying about the previous draft that it wasn't broad enough, that it didn't include anything or hardly anything for a lot of people homeless or in poverty who don't fit in a special group. And I'm very pleased to see that the wording of those kinds of things have been changed enough that they're broader and include more of those people. We have, especially with what the Alice report has shown about Lane County, there's so many un- and underhoused and underemployed. And I feel it's really important that they are not un- and underrepresented in your 5-year strategic plan. I want to especially focus on the strategic focus number 3. If you're able to look at that now. This was one that was really important to me and that I was pleased to see some, what could be fairly great expansion from the previous version in this goal. Because I think this is the goal where the public can be much more involved, and especially in the kinds of ways that David Hazen referred to, that there's so much more potential for that than we're currently tapping. Starting at the bottom, goal 3.2, part C, the very last point, participate and collaborate with public, private, and community organizations to advocate for support. This is new, I'm really glad that you've included this. I want to say that I hope that this is not intended to only be addressing points A and B that are above it, because A and B are about legislative agendas and policy agendas, but we need C to be much broader than that. And so I noticed there's no lines between A, B, and C here. In the other goal sections, there are lines between the subpoints. And so it's a petty little thing, but if you'd add lines, that would be great. And then potential partners, it's probably too soon really to list much there, but in 5 years, I hope there's a whole lot there. But the PHB committee, I don't think that would be legislative. And I would suggest the steering committee. And my experience with organizational stuff and partnerships and alliances, the steering committees have a main role in being contacted and helping to lead those kinds of partnerships, being able to come to pass.
We're real close here with Jessica on time, so.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, of course,
if you've got
at
something
the end
else
of my
on
point. So,
Also, there's an opportunity to weigh in on the website too, and I know we'll get that addressed for people here, as Diana, they have it, but we want to hear from you that way too. There's no more to say.